The twin moons of Kara, 9 hung low, pale and cracked like old coins over the endless fields. The air shimmered with dry heat, the kind that made machines groan and metal sweat. Jonah Park stood on the porch of his lonely outpost farm, wiping grease from his hands. His solar harvesters hummed in the distance, gathering light from a dying sun. He had lived here for 5 years, far from Earth, far from people, far from his past. Some nights, he told himself the silence was peace. Other nights, it felt like punishment. Tonight was one of those nights. The static on his radio kept whispering, a faint echo of old broadcasts that never reached anyone. Jonah sat in his creaking chair, a bottle half empty beside him. The horizon glowed orange, then purple, then sank into deep shadow. His breath made small clouds in the cooling air. Another day, another silence, he muttered, raising the bottle in a lonely toast to the stars. Then the sky split. It started as a streak, thin, bright, fast. But instead of burning away, it grew, swelling into a ball of light tearing through the clouds. The ground trembled. The bottle fell from Jonah's hand. He stood frozen as the fiery trail curved, dipped, and slammed into the valley beyond his solar towers. The sound followed a heartbeat later, a deep, rolling boom that shook dust from the rafters. Jonah's instincts took over. He grabbed his coil gun, threw on his jacket, and sprinted toward his utility skimmer. The engines coughed to life as he sped across the field, headlights cutting through smoke rising in the distance. He'd seen meteors before, but nothing like this. This one looked like it had engines. As he crested the ridge, he saw it clearly. A shuttle, sleek but battered, half buried in the dirt. Flames licked its hull. Blue sparks arced from torn panels. Jonah parked, leapt off the skimmer, and crouched low. His heart hammered. Out this far, pirates sometimes faked crash beacons to lure rescuers. He flicked his rifle to live mode. The shuttle groaned. A hatch hissed open, releasing a rush of white steam and the smell of burned metal. Jonah raised his weapon, sighting down the barrel. Then he saw them. 3 figures stumbled out, coughing, helping one another. Their skin glowed faintly, soft blue light pulsing beneath the surface, like veins filled with starlight. Their hair shimmered white under the twin moons. Behind them, smaller shapes appeared. Children. 4 of them, clutching toys and crying softly. For a moment, Jonah forgot to breathe. These weren't pirates. They weren't soldiers. They looked like refugees. The tallest of the women, if she could be called that, stepped forward. Her voice trembled but carried strength. Please, we need shelter. Our vessel was caught in a storm. Her accent was strange, but her words were clear. We have nowhere else to go. Jonah lowered his rifle, eyes narrowing. Where are you from? She hesitated. We were from Ariath. It was taken by the Varick Dominion. Our convoy scattered. We lost everyone else. She gestured behind her to the others. I am Saris. These are my sisters, Vale and Iri. And our children. Jonah looked from her to the wrecked shuttle. He could see the desperation in their faces, the exhaustion, the way the children clung to their mothers. He could also see that the ship wouldn't fly again soon. Its engine vents were warped like melted tin. He sighed, lowering the gun completely. You picked the worst patch of dirt in the galaxy to crash on, he said, voice dry. But I've got walls, water, and spare blankets. Follow me. Relief flickered across Saris's glowing eyes. Thank you. We will not forget this. As they crossed the fields back toward his farmhouse, one of the children, small, bright-eyed, carrying a cracked toy, pointed up. Another streak of light tore across the sky. Another one, she gasped. Jonah watched it fade into darkness. A chill ran through him. The universe was too quiet for coincidences. By the time they reached his porch, the silence had changed. It wasn't empty anymore. It was heavy, waiting. The strangers huddled inside as Jonah sealed the doors and powered up the perimeter lights. His farm, once so still, now felt alive with heartbeats that weren't his own. Outside, wind swept over the plains, carrying the faint echo of engines far, far away. Jonah looked out the window, rifle in hand. Somewhere beyond the hills, someone, or something, was looking for the crash site. He whispered to himself, so much for peace. And as the night deepened, the lonely farmer who had once wished for company realized that sometimes, when the sky answers your wish, it doesn't bring comfort. It brings a story that will change everything. The morning came red and silent. A thin mist hung over the fields of Kara, 9, glowing faintly under the twin suns. Jonah hadn't slept. The night had been full of noises, soft footsteps, whispers in an alien tongue, and the gentle hum of the wrecked shuttle cooling in the valley. When he stepped outside, the smell of smoke and ozone still lingered in the air. The ship lay like a wounded beast across the dirt, its hull cracked open and steaming. Saris and her sisters were already there, their pale blue skin shimmering in the dawn light. The children stayed close, silent and wide-eyed. "Engines are dead," Saris said as Jonah approached. Her voice was calm, but her eyes carried worry. "The reactor core is intact, but the guidance lattice, it's gone." Jonah crouched beside her, peering into the mess of alien circuitry. The technology looked nothing like the Terran systems he'd repaired all his life. Fluid lines, crystalline nodes, and cables that seemed to breathe. He ran a hand through his hair. "You're lucky you didn't vaporize half this valley." Vale, the middle sister, looked up from her work. She was smaller than Saris, her white hair tied back, her fingers moving with mechanical precision. "Luck had nothing to do with it. I shut the core down manually. Twice." She gave him a quick, tight smile. "You humans think too much in straight lines. Machines like this," she tapped the side of the shuttle, "they listen. You just have to speak the right way." Jonah raised an eyebrow. "And here I thought I was talking to a mechanic, not a philosopher." Vil didn't answer. She just smirked and kept working. Behind them, IRI was with the children, setting up a small camp under the shade of the solar towers. She was quiet, graceful, the kind of calm that could soothe chaos itself. The children were stacking bits of broken metal, pretending to build a ship of their own. One of them looked up and asked Jonah, "Mister, do humans always live alone?" The question hit harder than it should have. Jonah hesitated. "Not always," he said finally. "Just sometimes." The child nodded as if that made perfect sense. By midday, Jonah had brought down spare tools, power cells, and a field generator. He and Vale began running diagnostics together, while Saris monitored the shuttle's interior reactor, a glowing heart that pulsed like a living thing. The readings flickered. The reactor was stable, but losing containment efficiency. Jonah understood the numbers, but what scared him more was what lay beyond the screen. A quiet signal, hidden beneath the static. "Someone's pinging your ship," he said, voice low. "Long-range scan. It's faint, but it's out there." Saris froze. "Dominion patrols," she whispered. "They must have tracked the debris." Jonah's jaw tightened. "How long before they're here?" "Hours. Maybe less." The wind picked up, carrying the dry scent of dust and old storms. Jonah looked back toward his farmhouse, the only shelter for miles. He'd spent 5 years building it, piece by piece. A place no one could find him. Now it had become a target. "We can't move the ship," Vale said. "If they detect the reactor heat, we're finished." Jonah thought for a long moment. Then he snapped his fingers. "We won't move it, we'll hide it." They stared at him. He explained quickly, pulling up his datapad. "The irrigation towers around my field use ionized vapor screens. If we overload them, we can blanket the valley with charged mist. It'll distort heat scans. To anyone flying above, this place will look like a storm cloud." Saris blinked. "You think that will work?" "I think it'll keep your friends in one piece until nightfall," Jonah said, already jogging toward his workshop. "That's all that matters." By sunset, the plan was in motion. The towers began to hum, spilling a faint, bluish haze over the valley. The air smelled of ozone again, but this time it was controlled, directed. Inside the farmhouse, the sisters prepared food that shimmered faintly on the plate, releasing soft warmth. Jonah's table, usually empty, was now crowded with laughter and quiet voices. For the first time in years, he didn't eat alone. When the children finally drifted to sleep, Jonah stood by the window. The valley below was wrapped in mist, glowing faintly under the moons. His sensors picked up faint blips, Dominion scouts, scanning, searching. They wouldn't see the wreck, not yet. His storm was holding. Saris joined him at the window, her eyes reflecting the blue haze. "You could have turned us away," she said softly. "Why didn't you?" Jonah didn't look at her. "Guess I forgot how." Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance, real this time. Maybe a storm, maybe something else. But the farmhouse no longer felt like a tomb. It felt alive. For the first time in 5 long years, Jonah Park wasn't just a man hiding from the galaxy. He was part of something worth protecting. And as the mist rolled across the land, the sky above them flickered, 3 faint red dots moving fast, cutting through the clouds. The Dominion had found them. Night fell quick and heavy over Kara 9. The twin suns had barely slipped below the horizon when the mist Jonah created began to glow faintly, an artificial storm shielding their presence from orbit. The valley shimmered like a mirage, the wrecked shuttle hidden beneath layers of ionized vapor and static interference. Jonah sat at his cluttered workbench, half asleep, the low hum of power converters filling the air. His screens flickered with skin data, Dominion frequencies sweeping nearby sectors in wide arcs. They hadn't found the crash site yet, but they were close. Every few minutes, the static pulse of a scanner brushed his sensors like a shark's fin slicing through dark water. Across the room, Sarah stood by the window, silent. Her violet eyes reflected the storm lights outside. Vale tinkered with a fusion regulator, her fingers moving fast and precise. IRI rocked one of the smaller children to sleep, humming a soft tune that resonated like glass vibrating. The farmhouse, once lifeless, was now alive with motion and warmth and tension. Jonah's terminal beeped. A message from the Frontier Registry Office appeared. It was automated, filled with bureaucratic nonsense. Unauthorized alien vessels detected within human colonial space. Immediate reporting required under Article 17. He stared at it for a long second before snorting and muttering. Yeah, sure. I'll just tell the galaxy's most paranoid bureaucracy I'm hiding 3 glowing fugitives and their kids in my barn. Still, the message gave him an idea. Saris, he said, spinning his chair toward her. You said the Dominion uses long-range pulse codes to track refugees, right? She nodded. They embed identifiers into debris, DNA signatures, sometimes even heat patterns. Every ship carries a genetic hash beacon. We destroyed ours before landing, but her voice trailed off, troubled. The children. Their biometrics are still registered to the Dominion archive. Jonah frowned. Then we have to bury the signal deeper. How? Vale asked, skeptical. We can't change their DNA. No, Jonah said, standing up, his mind already racing ahead. But we can jam the broadcast their implants make. He crossed the room, pulling open a drawer filled with scavenged parts, coils, power cells, transmitter chips. If I can tune a field around the house, it'll create static interference strong enough to distort outbound signals. Like a white noise wall. Vale tilted her head. You think you can out-engineer Dominion trackers? He gave her a lopsided grin. Lady, I once built a working water recycler out of a broken coffee maker and a toaster. I can fake a signal. That earned him a short laugh, dry but real. Then let's see what kind of magic Earth men still have. For hours, they worked side by side, stringing wires through the farmhouse walls, rigging the shield emitters Jonas scavenged from his irrigation system. Sparks flew. The air filled with the smell of burning dust and ozone. At one point, Vale handed him a glowing cable and brushed his hand. Her skin was cool, but pulsing faintly with light. For a brief second, Jonah forgot about the danger outside. By dawn, the system was online. The entire valley pulsed with a deep, rhythmic vibration, low enough to feel in the chest. Jonah stepped outside and checked the horizon. The mist curtain shimmered, thicker now, wrapping the crash site in an electromagnetic cocoon. He exhaled. That should mess with their sensors. From behind him, a voice. And with ours. He turned. Captain Dara Moy, his occasional supplier, stood near the skimmer, rifle slung over her shoulder. Jonah's stomach tightened. He hadn't seen her arrive. Your storm trick's clever, she said, looking up at the false clouds. Almost fried my landing sensors. What the hell are you hiding, Park? Jonah hesitated. Lying to her wouldn't work. Dara had the instincts of a scavenger and the patience of a predator. He met her gaze. You don't want to know. Dara's eyes narrowed, then flicked to the shadows behind him, where a faint blue glow betrayed movement. The sisters froze at the doorway, half in light. The youngest child peeked out, clutching a small toy ship. Dara blinked once. Well, damn, she murmured. You always did attract trouble. I'm not asking for help, Jonah said firmly. Good, she replied. Because you're about to need more than I can give. She tossed him a data drive. Dominion scouts hit a trade route 2 systems east. Word is, they're chasing something that glows and sings. Sound familiar? Sarah stepped forward, her tone sharp. They're hunting us. Dara nodded. And they've got coordinates that end somewhere near this rock. Jonah's mind raced. Then we move before they close in. Vale frowned. The ship can't fly yet. Reactors still unstable. Then we fix it, Jonah said, voice hardening. We've got until sunset, maybe less. He turned to Dara. You leaving? Not yet. She looked around the room, at the children, at the quiet hum of alien light warming the walls. I'll buy you time. I'll send false pings across 3 quadrants. But Park, if the Dominion tracks me here, I'm taking my ship straight to orbit. Fair, Jonah said. When she left, the silence that followed was thicker than before. Outside, the mist flickered faintly. The horizon trembled with distant flashes, ion burns, like searchlights tearing across the sky. Jonah felt a chill run down his spine. The storm he built was working, but storms don't last forever. He turned back toward the sisters, their faces tense and luminous in the half-light. We have one night, he said quietly. After that, they'll come in force. Saris nodded. Then we'll make this night count. Somewhere beyond the clouds, the Dominion ships adjusted course, zeroing in on their position. The day broke cold and gray, the air thick with metallic mist. Kara 9's horizon shimmered like it was wrapped in glass. Jonah stood on the roof of his farmhouse, tightening a panel on one of the tower emitters. Each hum, each flicker, was a reminder that the illusion protecting them, his storm, was fragile. One wrong frequency, and the whole veil would drop. Below, Saris moved like blue fire through the fog. Her skin's glow dimmed so it wouldn't reflect the searchlights sweeping above the valley. Vale worked near the wrecked shuttle, buried halfway under camo netting and debris. She had stripped its main reactor casing, pulling out what looked like a living crystal that pulsed weakly in her hands. IRI kept the children close, teaching them how to move quietly. Even their laughter was a whisper now. The world had become a heartbeat. Jonah's comm unit buzzed suddenly, startling him. He almost dropped the spanner. Incoming vessel, low orbit. Iden code, unknown. His stomach dropped. Already. He slid down the ladder and sprinted toward the control shed, boots crunching over frost-bitten dust. On the display, a silhouette appeared, a ship descending far too smoothly to be Dominion. Civilian model. Old, but it was definitely heading straight for them. Vale joined him, wiping sweat and oil from her cheek. It's too small for a patrol craft. Jonah zoomed in on the feed. The transponder flickered before resolving into a name that made his pulse skip. Kestrel. Saris's voice came through the comm. You know this vessel? Yeah, Jonah muttered. And if she's here, something's gone wrong. The freighter landed in a swirl of dust beside the wheat fields, her engines whining like wounded animals. The ramp dropped, and out stepped Captain Dara Moy, her jacket coated in frost, her eyes sharper than ever. Jonah met her halfway, rifle slung but not drawn. You shouldn't be here, he said. Neither should a glowing storm that's jamming half a quadrant's comms, she shot back. The Dominions sniffing around like wolves. You're broadcasting a damn beacon every time your system resets. Jonah frowned. That shouldn't be possible. The field's closed. Not anymore, Dara said, tossing him a cracked data chip. They're triangulating from the power surges. You've got hours before they drop troops. Behind them, Saris and Vale appeared at the edge of the fog. Dara's eyes widened slightly at their pale forms and the faint glow around their hands. Well, she said dryly, that explains the storm. And the signal. They're refugees, Jonah said quickly. Families, not soldiers. Dara exhaled. Jonah, you've got a good heart, but the Dominion doesn't care about definitions. If they find this place, they'll burn it to dust, and me with it. Then help us leave, Saris said, stepping closer. You have access to orbital beacons, yes? You could hide our launch. Dara looked from her to Jonah, then at the valley full of mist. Your ship can't even walk, let alone fly. Vale smirked. It will. That night, the plan formed between them like fire catching dry grass. Jonah and Vale would work non-stop to restore the shuttle's propulsion array. Saris and IRI would dismantle one of Jonah's solar converters to repurpose its plasma lines as emergency fuel feed. Dara would stay until sunset, linking her ship's systems to the mist emitters to make the storm look bigger than it was. It was a fragile lie, held together by wires, courage, and exhaustion. Hours later, sparks showered the barn as Vale shouted, Ignition stable. A cheer went up from the children, quickly hushed by Saris. The storm outside howled louder now, reacting to the strain. The sky flashed every few minutes, and each time Jonah thought it was lightning until he realized the flashes were search beacons. Dominion drones were slicing through the atmosphere, methodically sweeping the planet's surface. Dara ran inside, face pale. They've dropped probes. 2 are heading right for us. How much time? Jonah asked. Maybe 20 minutes. Vale slammed a panel shut. Then the ship will be ready in 20. The next few moments blurred into chaos. Jonah dragged crates of food and fuel toward the shuttle's cargo bay. The sisters packed data crystals and seed pods, the heart of their mission. The children clutched their toys and stayed silent, as if understanding that noise itself could be fatal. Outside, the storm began to break apart. Wind howled through the valley, scattering the mist into ribbons. Jonah could see faint lights moving above, cold, predatory glimmers. He turned to Dara. You need to go? Now. They'll trace your signature if you stay. She hesitated, then pulled a small metallic device from her jacket. EMP scrambler, she said, pressing it into his hand. We'll buy you maybe 5 minutes if they lock on. Jonah nodded. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Dara climbed the ramp of her freighter and met his eyes one last time. You always did find trouble worth dying for. Make it count this time. Then she was gone. The Kestrel roared upward, vanishing into the clouds like a ghost. The first probe broke through the fog minutes later, a black sphere trailing blue flame. It scanned the wrecked field, then turned toward the farmhouse. Lights off, Jonah whispered. Everyone quiet. The probe hovered outside, its red lens pulsing as it scanned. The children clung to IRI, silent tears streaking down their glowing cheeks. Jonah's hand tightened on the scrambler's trigger. A high whine filled the air, the probe locking onto a target. Jonah pressed the switch. The device popped, sparked, and exploded in a shower of light. The probe convulsed, sensors flaring white before it crashed into the ground, smoke pouring from its hull. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then Saris grabbed Jonah's arm. They'll know we're here. I know, he said, his voice steady. That's why we leave now. The second probe screamed overhead, broadcasting coordinates to the stars. The Dominion now knew exactly where to look. And for the first time since the crash, Jonah realized there would be no more running, no more hiding. Tonight, they either escaped, or they became the storm's last secret. The valley was no longer silent. It rumbled with the low growl of engines breaking through the clouds. Red light danced across the mist, chasing away the calm Jonah had worked so hard to build. His screens flickered with new signals, 6 ships descending, small but fast, Dominion interceptors designed for capture, not negotiation. Vale, status, he shouted over the roar of wind. The mechanic's voice came through the calm, breathless and urgent. Reactor is live. We've got thrust, but the stabilizers are glitching. If we lift now, it'll be like flying a hurricane with one wing. Jonah grabbed his pulse rifle and sprinted out into the storm. The mist whipped his face, cold and metallic, carrying sparks of static from the overloaded towers. Through the haze, he saw Saris standing at the shuttle's open ramp, her hair plastered against her glowing skin, shouting orders in her native tongue. The children were already inside, strapped into narrow seats beside the cargo pods filled with seed crystals, the last fragments of their lost world. Vale, Jonah shouted again, sliding across the slick metal deck as he reached her. You've got 10 minutes, tops. 10. Vale smirked grimly. That's generous. She slammed a plasma wrench into place, sparks flying around her like a storm of stars. Jonah turned to the ridge, his heart thudding. The first interceptor broke through the cloud cover, sleek and black, its searchlights sweeping across the valley. It looked like a shark cutting through blood. Sarah saw it too. They found us. Jonah ran back toward the farmhouse, fingers moving fast across his wrist pad. Come on, he muttered. His makeshift defense grid blinked to life. Irrigation drones rose from their docks, repurposed into aerial decoys. Small, fragile machines, but they carried flares and reflective metal. The first Dominion ship opened fire, plasma rounds tearing through the mist. The air filled with burning ozone. Jonah triggered his drones, and a dozen glowing dots scattered into the storm, drawing the enemy's aim. Not bad for a farmer, Vale called from the ramp, half laughing, half panicked. "Remind me to charge rent for this chaos," Jonah shouted back. Then the second wave came. 3 interceptors dove from the clouds in tight formation, firing stun bombs that exploded in flashes of blue light. One of Jonah's towers exploded in a burst of fire, sending debris raining down. The air shimmered with heat and light. Inside the shuttle, IRI shielded the children as the hull vibrated under the blasts. "Saris, they're targeting the reactor," she cried. "Not if I can help it," Jonah muttered. He ran to the generator rig, yanking open the control panel. The storm shields were collapsing. If the Dominion got a clean lock, it would be over in minutes. Vale appeared beside him, her skin flickering with stress glow. "I can reroute the auxiliary grid through your field emitters," she said quickly. "It'll fry the towers, but it'll blind their sensors long enough to launch." Jonah stared at her. "That's suicide. The discharge could kill me." Vale smirked. "Then make sure it doesn't." Before he could argue, she was gone, sprinting into the fog. Jonah cursed under his breath, slamming the panel shut and running after her. He found her halfway up the ridge, knee-deep in smoke, attaching cables to the main tower's core. Her hands shook as arcs of blue energy danced between the circuits. "Vale, that's too much power." "Exactly the point," she shouted. "Go. I'll trigger it manually." Jonah hesitated, torn between survival and something deeper, a feeling that had been building since the night the sky first fell. But before he could speak, Vale looked back, her eyes bright through the storm. "If this works, tell Saris I finally made something beautiful." The tower erupted in light. A wave of electromagnetic energy rolled across the valley, crackling through every field and circuit. The Dominion ships above jerked mid-air, their navigation lights flickering wildly. Jonah dove to the ground as fire streaked across the sky. 2 interceptors spiraled out of control, slamming into the cliffs beyond the ridge. The mist flared, brighter than daylight. When it faded, the tower was gone, and so was Vale. Jonah's ears rang. Static filled his calm. "Vale," he shouted. No response. Only silence. "Jonah." Saris's voice cut through the static. "The engines are ready. We have to go now." He staggered to his feet, smoke and dust clinging to his clothes. The valley around him glowed with residual charge. The storm was dying, its protective field collapsing. He ran for the shuttle, the heat from the reactor hum searing his back. As he climbed the ramp, Saris met his eyes. "Where's Vale?" Jonah hesitated. The words came out hollow. "She bought us time." Saris's glow dimmed, grief flickering across her face, but she didn't stop. "Then we won't waste it." The engines roared, shaking the valley. Jonah jumped into the co-pilot's seat beside Saris. IRI secured the children in the rear, whispering prayers in a language that sounded like rain. Outside, the last Dominion interceptor descended through the smoke, weapons primed. Jonah gritted his teeth. "We're not dying on this rock." Saris pulled the throttle. "Then hold on." The shuttle blasted off, the ground falling away beneath them. The farmhouse, the fields, the towers, all vanished into swirling light and fire. Plasma bolts chased them into the clouds, cutting streaks across the dawn. As the ship broke through the upper atmosphere, the storm behind them collapsed entirely, Vale's final flare painting the sky with blue fire. The Dominion ship veered, blinded by the interference, and disappeared into the haze. For the first time in days, there was open sky above them. Black, infinite, and waiting. Jonah looked through the viewport, breathing hard. His reflection shimmered faintly in the glass, skin dusted with light from the reactor glow, eyes wide and unblinking. He wasn't just a farmer anymore. He was part of something bigger, a fight that had started long before he ever set foot on this forgotten world. Saris steadied the ship. "She's gone," she whispered, voice breaking. Jonah nodded, jaw tight. "Then we make sure she didn't die for nothing." The ship's engines flared brighter, and together they rose higher, carrying the last survivors of a dead world into the stars. The stars unfolded above them, vast, cold, and silent. The shuttle rose through the final layer of Kara 9's atmosphere, its hull shaking under the pressure of escape. The storm Vale created had burned itself out below, leaving only smoke and light where a home once stood. Inside, the survivors were ghosts of exhaustion, bodies trembling, eyes wide, hearts still racing. Jonah sat beside Saris in the cockpit, both of them breathing in rhythm with the hum of the engines. His hands were blistered from the fight, his face streaked with soot, but he didn't feel it. All he could think about was the woman they'd left behind. Vale's voice still echoed in his head. "Tell Saris I finally made something beautiful." Saris hadn't spoken since launch. Her violet eyes were fixed on the navigation screen, but her glow was dim, the faint pulse of her bioluminescence dull with grief. "She was my twin," she said quietly. "Two minds born from one seed. I can still feel the silence where she should be." Jonah swallowed hard. "She gave us this chance. Don't let that be for nothing." Saris's jaw tightened. "Then we make it count." The shuttle shuddered as a proximity alarm blared. On the rear display, red dots bloomed across the sensor grid. Dominion ships, 3 of them, rising fast through the clouds below. Their ion trails burned bright, like claws scraping at the sky. "They're coming," IRI called from the back, clutching her children close. "They must have followed the EMP burst. Engines can't outrun them," Saris said, scanning the readings. "We're too heavy." Jonah thought fast, every instinct sharpened by desperation. "Is there a gate nearby? Anything that can jump us out of this system?" Saris frowned, tapping the map projection. "There's an old magnetar relay on the outer rim. Half a day's flight if we push the reactor. Then that's where we're going." She shook her head. "That magnetar will tear us apart without shielding." Jonah gave a thin, fierce smile. "Then we don't hit the field, we skim it." Saris looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "You're suggesting we slingshot through a collapsing magnetic storm?" "I'm suggesting we make the impossible possible," he said simply. "That's kind of what humans do." Saris stared at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Vale would have liked you." The chase began. The Dominion ships rose through the clouds like black knives, plasma cannons firing in rhythmic bursts. The first blast grazed their wing, shaking the shuttle violently. Sparks cascaded across the control panel. The children screamed. Jonah gripped the throttle, steadying the vessel as Saris rerouted power from life support to shields. 3 minutes until the magnetar belt, she shouted. "Plenty of time to die," Jonah muttered, banking sharply. The stars outside blurred into streaks of light. Another hit, this one closer. The cabin filled with smoke. Warning lights flared red. The hull's temperature spiked past safety limits. "Saris," he shouted, "we need more thrust." "I can give you power, or I can give you control," she snapped. "Not both." "Then give me power," he growled. The shuttle leapt forward, engines screaming in protest. The Dominion ships fell behind for a moment, but not far enough. They fired grapplers, magnetic tethers that snaked through space like glowing harpoons. One struck the hull, latching on with a flash of blue light. "They're pulling us back," IRI cried. Jonah slammed the manual override, but the ship groaned, slowing under the drag. "Saris, cut the tether." "I'm trying." Sparks burst from her console. "It's draining our systems." Jonah didn't think, he felt. Something deep within him stirred, the strange hum of the binding veil had once described, a connection between human will and Aryan biotech. His veins tingled. The lights in the cockpit flickered in rhythm with his pulse. He pressed his hand to the console. For a moment, his skin glowed faintly blue, the same hue as Saris's. Energy surged through his arm, into the ship. The engines flared. The tether snapped. Saris gasped. "How did you?" "I don't know," Jonah panted. "Maybe your people rubbed off on me." "More than you think," she murmured, softening her voice. The magnetar loomed ahead, a swirling sphere of red lightning and fractured gravity, pulsing like a heartbeat in the dark. The sensors screamed warnings, but Jonah ignored them. "Hang on," he shouted. They entered the edge of the field. The ship shuddered violently, hull plates bending under the magnetic pressure. Streams of light twisted across the stars as gravity warped around them. Shield collapse in 15 seconds. Saris yelled, "Can we make it?" IRI cried from the back. Jonah gritted his teeth. "We don't have to make it look pretty, just make it through." He forced the ship into a roll, riding the outer current of the magnetar's storm. The entire craft vibrated like a living thing. Static lightning danced along the hull. The Dominion ships followed, but too close. The magnetic field caught them, tearing their hulls apart like paper in a hurricane. One by one, their signals vanished from the radar. "Hold on," Jonah roared as the shuttle burst out of the magnetar's shadow. The black of deep space opened ahead, clean and endless. Then silence. Every alarm went dark. Every warning light faded. The ship floated, battered but alive. Saris collapsed back in her seat, shaking, her glow flickering weakly. "You're insane," she whispered. Jonah laughed, a low, tired laugh that turned into a cough. "Probably." He looked out at the stars. But it worked. The children cheered softly from the back, their laughter echoing through the quiet cabin like a fragile promise. For the first time since the crash, there was peace. Real, uncertain, beautiful peace. Saris reached over, her hand finding Jonah's. Vale would have been proud. He squeezed gently. "Then let's make sure we find somewhere she'd want us to land." Ahead, a faint signal blinked on the radar, a station, human-made, orbiting a distant blue world. It was old, forgotten, but alive. A possible refuge. Jonah leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Set a course. And as the ship drifted toward the unknown, Kara, 9 shrank behind them. A world of ghosts and sacrifice, while the stars of a new beginning waited beyond. The shuttle drifted for hours through the dark, running on emergency power. Its engines hummed low, its lights dim, like a wounded bird gliding through night air. The planet ahead, Eclipsera, 4, was a pale blue jewel wrapped in thin cloud rings. Once a human science outpost, now silent for decades, its orbital station floated above the atmosphere, broken but still breathing faint signals into the void. Jonah sat in the co-pilot's chair, his eyes fixed on the view. His reflection in the glass was no longer the man who had once lived alone in a farmhouse on Kara 9. His skin glowed faintly beneath the grime, the blue luminescence of Aryan energy running like veins of light beneath the surface. His humanity hadn't faded, it had evolved. Saris stood beside him, her voice quiet but steady. Eclipsera was abandoned after the magnetic wars. Radiation made it unlivable for decades. But she hesitated, scanning her readouts. "I think it's healing." "Meaning?" Jonah asked. "The surface readings show green zones. Pockets of oxygen. Soil regrowth. The planet's fixing itself." He smiled faintly. Maybe it just needed time. Saris looked at him then. Really looked, and something softened in her face. Or maybe it needed someone who refuses to give up. Their brief silence was broken by a soft chime from the console. The station was hailing them. A voice crackled through, human but wary. "Unidentified vessel. This is Eclipsera Station Command. You're entering restricted orbit. Identify yourself." Jonah keyed the mic. "Name's Jonah Park, Terran citizen. We've got survivors from Ariath, refugees. And something that might save more than just them." A pause. Then the voice returned, softer now. "Proceed to Dock 3. And welcome home, whoever you are." As the shuttle locked onto the docking beacon, Saris exhaled shakily. "Home," she repeated. "A strange word for those of us without one." Jonah turned to her. "Then we'll build a new one." The docking clamps latched with a heavy clang. The doors opened into the quiet halls of Eclipsera Station, dim lights, drifting dust, and the faint scent of ozone. Jonah led the way, rifle slung but lowered. The corridors whispered with echoes of the past, human voices that had long gone silent. In the center hub, they found what they were looking for, a greenhouse dome half-collapsed, its soil dry but intact. Broken irrigation lines hung from the ceiling. Faded signs still read Terraform Research Unit 7. Saris stepped into the dome, her bare feet pressing against cracked earth. "It's still fertile," she murmured. "The planet's pulse is returning." From the shuttle, IRI and the children carried out the seed crystals, glowing softly like stars in glass. They placed them gently into the soil, one by one. Saris knelt beside them, touching the ground, her light merging with theirs. The crystals pulsed once, twice, then began to root, sending fine silver filaments into the dirt. Jonah watched in silence. For years he had worked with machines, systems, and silence. Now, he was watching life being born again. "Will it grow?" he asked quietly. Saris smiled through her tears. "If we nurture it, if we protect it." Hours passed. The greenhouse filled with a faint hum, the sound of the crystals merging with the soil's minerals, rewriting the chemistry of the land. Green light spread like veins beneath the dirt. The first leaf broke through the cracked surface, metallic, shimmering, alive. Jonah knelt beside Saris, the two of them bathed in the newborn glow. Vale's work, he whispered. It's alive again. Saris nodded, her hand finding his. She believed creation is the only true rebellion. Today, we proved her right. The children laughed, chasing floating dust motes that now shimmered in the light. IRI's glow reflected off the glass dome like 100 fireflies. For the first time, the station didn't feel abandoned. It felt like a beginning. Then the console on Jonah's wrist beeped, a faint alert. He glanced at it, his chest tightening. Incoming signal, Dominion transmission detected. Tracking anomaly within Eclipsora sector. He cursed under his breath. They're still looking. Saris rose slowly. They won't stop. As long as the seeds exist, they'll hunt us. Jonah stood too, eyes hardening. Then they'll find something waiting for them this time. She tilted her head. You mean to fight? He smiled, tired, grim, certain. Not fight. Defend. This isn't their galaxy to burn anymore. Outside the station, the first shimmer of dawn reflected off Eclipsora's blue horizon. For the first time in decades, the planet breathed. The air shimmered with oxygen and the faint hum of photosynthesis returning. In the dome, tiny plants unfurled under artificial lights. Their glow mirrored the luminescence of the Aryan survivors, their colors blending, human warmth and alien brilliance, until the line between them vanished completely. IRI whispered to the children, pointing at the sprouting leaves. Look closely, she said. The first forest of two worlds. Jonah watched them, standing beside Saris, feeling something deep and powerful stirring inside. Not hope, something stronger. Purpose. He looked out the cracked glass window toward the stars, where distant shadows moved like ghosts. Let them come, he murmured. We'll be ready. Saris turned to him, her voice soft but fierce. Then humanity will stand with us. He nodded. No, we will stand as one. As the camera of the universe pulled back, Eclipsora, shimmered with faint blue light, a wounded world healing beneath the stars. The Dominion fleet drifted on the edges of the system, unaware that the thing they feared most was already growing. A union of species, born from loss and defiance, ready to reshape the galaxy. And somewhere deep in the soil below the greenhouse, the seed crystals pulsed in time with two heartbeats, one human, one Aryan, woven together in the rhythm of life reborn.